Amid these international trade talks, I had a chance earlier to speak with the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter. He gave his take on the latest Nafta developments.
Well, I personally helped Nafta get started, and I was very proud of what Nafta had done, both for the United States and also for Canada and Mexico. And I hope that when we do replace it with something relating to Canada, it'll be fair to both countries. That's what I hope for. I think Nafta was, and I hope the new arrangements, whatever they might be, will be equally successful.
You use that word fair. I mean, what represents fairness? Certainly in your own views when it comes to trade issues, you've talked, for example, about Canada's lumber industry and its practices over the years. There are a lot of issues at the end of the day when it comes to a big trade file and different industries that are associated. But what do you think a fair deal looks like?
Well, the minor adjustments, like, for instance, timber and lumber, can be handled by individual organizations or groups that know how to make sure it does come out good for both countries. But other things that are traded, they also have specialists who work on them, and the overall arrangement between countries is worked out by the World Organization. So I don't think there's any doubt that an organization like Nafta was, that's been in operation for a long time, was beneficial to the United States. I think it was also beneficial to Canada, and it was beneficial to Mexico, and I hope the future will be the same.
And are you optimistic at the end of the day that some kind of new trilateral deal can be reached between Canada, Mexico, and the United States?
Well, that's my hope. I know. Well, I knew Pierre Trudeau's son when he was earlier in life, when they visited the White House, and Justin and I have been good friends, and I hope and pray that the friendship that exists between the people of Mexico and Canada and the United States will prevail right on, particularly between Canada and the United States. We never had a better friend in the world, or one that supported our constantly changing policies in America any more closely or more avidly or more productively than Canada has, and I hope that will be the same thing in the future.
You mentioned that relationship that you had with Pierre Trudeau, and of course you led the U.S. delegation at his funeral, and knowing yes. Justin Trudeau since a young age, what would be your advice to him in this current stage of the negotiations and the comments and conversations with President Trump at this stage when it comes to this issue of trade?
Well, my high school teacher used to tell me we must accommodate changing times, but cling to principles that never change. And I think that's one of the things that has to be done both in politics and also in trade relationships, is we have to accommodate the other side and make allowances for them, sometimes yield on a particular point, but cling to principles like fairness and equality and so forth that never change.
At the end of the day, how do you think the trading relationship, the friendship between Canada and the U.S. will play out in the years ahead, depending on what happens with something like Nafta?
I think overwhelmingly the people of America, of the United States, and the people of Canada have an inclination of friendship and cooperation with each other. And I think that although we might have some setbacks on occasion, that friendship comes through. So I don't have any doubt that in future years, the difficulties that we see right this moment between maybe Prime Minister Trudeau and President Trump will be dissipated. I feel sure about that. And if both sides just to cling to those principles that I just described, like accommodating changing times, but cling to principles that don't change, I think that will prevail.
I do want to talk a little bit about the passing of John McCain. You have spoken
yes.
about that in the last few days. In remembering him,
yes.
you've talked about his commitment to the truth. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, at the Naval Academy, where both John McCain and I attended, the preeminent duty that we had was to tell the truth. And if we made the slightest statement that was not factual. It was an automatic ejection from the Naval Academy altogether. If we said we didn't step on the grass, and an upperclassman saw us step on the grass, we were gone. And so, telling the truth was one of the most preeminent things that prevailed in my early life with my father, and also particularly was nailed down, I would say, or made permanent in my consciousness when I was at the Naval Academy. And when I ran for public office, that was the main promise that I made to the American people after a lot of falsehoods had been told about the Vietnam War and things like that, was to tell the truth. And I would say to little groups who I hope would support me for president, if I ever make a misleading statement to you, don't vote for me. So I tried to adhere to that standard throughout my term in office, and also earlier when I was governor of Georgia. So I think the truth is a crucial element in morality and in preserving human rights.
A lot of people have talked over the last few days about the White House's response to John McCain's death. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the White House has finally come forward and made a reasonable statement about obligation to John McCain and appreciation for his service to our country, both when he was a naval officer and later on, of course, when he was in the Parliament of America, or in the Congress of America. So I think they finally corrected a very serious early mistake of ignoring the great contributions that John McCain has made to our country throughout his life. So they were tardy with it and made some early mistakes by not lowering the flag and things of that kind, but I think they've corrected them adequately now.